Hello, and welcome to The Gathering, a Magic podcast. My name's Stanley, and I'm here with some of my best friends to talk about our favorite game, Magic the Gathering. And today, we are at a pretty exciting time for Standard. We are sitting right smack in the middle of two US RCs. Last weekend, we had RC Minneapolis. And next weekend, or I suppose this weekend, by the time you're listening, we have RC Hartford coming up, which Nick, Julianne, Jacob, and I will be taking by storm and hopefully having a much better weekend than we had in Minneapolis. But before we talk about what was and what will be, a brief word and thank you to our sponsor, FlexSlot. FlexSlot, fantastic deck building and sideboard guide website. If you've used it before, it probably has more features than you realized. If you haven't used it before, you're really missing out. The sideboard guide feature is great, both as just a Magic player and a content creator. It's a great way to make, share, and keep my sideboard guides updated. And on the other side of that coin, it's just really easy to use to make sideboard guides. And you can also use it for deck lists, which is really fun. My favorite thing about the deck list, very superficial, but I really like making those, pictures of my deck like you can get from Goldfish, but you get to customize and move the cards around. And the Goldfish one, there's always like 1 to 13 unhinged locations. So it's really nice to be able to just organize your deck and that nice little picture to, share or just have for yourself. But anyway, flexslot.gg. We love you, FlexSlot. And with that, we'll jump into today's episode and talk about what was back in Minneapolis last weekend. The only one of us who didn't attend was Jacob, so I'm going to toss the microphone over to him before we share any personal stories to talk about some top level looks at RC Minneapolis.
Thank you, Stanley. I didn't attend, but kind of what I talked about the last podcast was I thought that a control deck was going to do very, very well at the tournament, and Jeskai Control ended up winning the whole thing. Kind of expected phenomenal matchup against all the aggro decks of the format. It's pretty good against Amir. Pretty good against Jeskai Oculus too. I'd probably say, I don't know, maybe its worst matchup is Omniscience. I can't really talk to it, but I think it has the ability to kind of kill quick if you can play your cards right. But there's also, besides just Minneapolis, there's multiple RCs, so I know the U.S.'s in Minneapolis occurred, Japan's, Brazil's, and then Southeast Asia's. So Frank Karsten, again, shout out Frank Karsten, put all the data together, got all the win rates together, with Gruul Delirium having the best win rate, but it's kind of a small sample size. There's only, it says 23, 14, and 0. But so the highest win rate by number of games played is probably Dimir Midrange, which had a 54.9% win rate, and that's about 700-ish games. It's 335 wins, 275 losses, and 10 draws. Mono Black Demons being right under it with 229 wins, 191 losses. So that's 54.5%. And then a little under that is It Prowess with 1,700 wins, 1,500 losses, and 29 draws. And then it keeps going down. Omniscience, Jeskai Control, Domain. Domain was basically exactly 50% across the board, and then it just goes down from there. Same with Simic Terror. Shout out Simic Terror. 20 wins, 20 losses, 1 draw. So going into the weekend, I watched as much coverage as I could, but I also kind of had like life things going on as well, but kept up with everyone in the group. Wanted to see how everyone was doing, which not the best showing, but I think it's sometimes you read the room wrong. Sometimes you know, pick a deck and things just don't work out for you. So excited to battle in Hartford with maybe something spicy. We'll see.
Yeah. We're bum, 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 bum. We're doing some crab dancing here. I think I think I can confidently say that all four of us will have Eddie Merck crab in our 75, which is pretty exciting. That we're all four going to have at least two to three cards in common in our 75s, which is pretty fun. Looking at kind of that same win rate graphic from Frank Karsten, you know, Jeskai Control winning Minneapolis, but not having a dominant win rate in that low 50s like a lot of decks are looking right now. Jeskai Control, is it Prowess? Jeskai Oculus actually fell a little bit below 50, which I find a little surprising. 49.6, so mega close. Domain actually rocking 50% exactly. 492, and 26 draws. That's a lot of draws. But one thing I noticed someone point out, I think kind of I Love Azorius on Twitter pointed out that Prowess is dominant. It has, 52.5% win rate, but it's not like feasting on any given deck. It's relatively flat. As you kind of look across the column, it's everywhere between, it tops out at 54% and it bottoms out at 45%. So it's doing, it's within striking distance of any given matchup. So a lot of room for skill expression and variance in those matchups. Speaking to my particular Minneapolis experience, it was my worst result at a major event by a long shot. First time missing day 2 at an RC, and just really had a terrible time. I went into a bit more detail on various platforms, and I'm sure we don't all want to tell our sob stories about the bad weekend we had, but I went in with a non-stock build, which was fine. Yeah, I don't think the deck made or broke the weekend. I think I ran into a lot of issues. I was on the draw in aggro mirrors, and I pulled the decks that were just super tech to beat aggro, and I did make a pretty big mistake in not like teching back too hard to beat those deck fields with hate. I had a little bit, but not enough. And my mana base was definitely wrong. I just kept not being able to cast my spells. In my gut, I had wanted to make a change before the tournament, and I didn't, but I should have. So going into Hartford, I'm going to be listening to my gut a little bit more and trying to filter out some of the noise. And you might look at my deck list and go, Stanley, if that's not going with your gut, what is? Your deck list was pretty off the rails. But there were a couple little things that I got punished on that I had been thinking about changing, and I just didn't, but I should have. Yeah, who wants to go next? Talk about their wonderful weekend in Minneapolis.
I can.
Oh.
Go for it.
I would say I can go next because Jacob shouted out my Minneapolis deck of choice, which was Civic Terror, which got put on the Frank Karsten data metrics thing, so that was pretty cool. The unfortunate side of things was that deck had a 0% win rate against mono red aggro, which I knew was going to be a tough matchup going in, and I faced it twice. So, that was pretty upsetting. Didn't win the matchup lottery. You have to be lucky and good to win a tournament. But other than that, I think Minneapolis, from just like walking around, what our friends had played against, what the tables next to me every round were playing, nothing seemed out of the blue. I think everything is pretty expected in terms of standard. Like the decks that are good are known to be good.
Shout out Steven making day 2 on Boros Burn. Definitely not expected.
That's true.
Did not have Boros Burn making day 2 on my bingo card. But Steven, we love you. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, so shout out Steven for being, proving that if you know your deck, even if it's in the other category or not in the meta, it can still do very well. But yeah, all in all, I mean, it was a large RC that was expected, as always. I think 1,500 people ish, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I felt like everything was expected.
Nick, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, me and Ron can round out the weekend on Leyline. We were the 2 people who played Leyline, and I talked to a couple different people who played Leyline, and I think me and him may have been the worst performing Leyline players of the tournament, which is pretty funny, all things considered.
Right there with you on prowess. So
yeah. I'm a pretty big, play what got you there guy. So I won both my RCQs with Leyline, and then obviously I won the big tournament with Leyline. So it felt like a disservice to not play the deck at least one more time. But I believe the deck was a horrible, horrible choice for the weekend after seeing the decks people were playing. Shout out to my round 2 opponent with 4 Flash Freeze in their main deck. Just not a good metagame for Leyline by any means.
Brief. So since we're a podcast, Flash Freeze, by the way, is a magic card for 1 and a blue that says counter target red or green spell, which pretty unhinged for a main deck, especially when Change the Equation is a legal magic card, which can counter a red or green spell, but also, do you know the other text on it, Nick?
Anything 2 or less.
Anything
but
2
also
or less.
a red or green spell that costs 6 or less. So my man must have really scared with Jeskai Revelation, because that's literally the one card in Standard that people play that you can't hit. I was like, man, at least make me feel better and play Change the Equation if you want to tech that hard for red, but no, just straight up Flash Freeze. He knew
I
what he
hope
was there
your
for.
round 2 opponent is listens to the podcast and gets.
I hope so too. Yeah. But deck selection is a pretty huge part of a tournament, and I would chalk my weekend up to I chose a bad deck for the weekend. I could have a sob story about mulligan at 5 and all that, but no, I think it's just deck selection.
Ron, how was your Leyline weekend?
Pretty horrendous overall, but I'm kind of like Nick. It's what won me the invite, so I said, you know what, I feel good with this deck. I'd been playing it for a while, felt comfortable with it, and thought, I feel pretty good actually in Izzet matchups, believe it or not. I felt kind of like, I was doing okay in those, and sat down, looked at my opponent's deck list round 1, and there's 4 Sheltered by Ghosts in his white pile of nastiness, and I was like, yeah. And it didn't get any better from there. So all in all, it was a rough outing. As always, the gathering part was good, but the Magic part was pretty rough. Gathering was good. Magic was rough.
Shout out Mall of America. I missed you, but Nick and Julianne went twice.
Yes,
I'm jealous. I regret not getting to Minneapolis earlier.
I want to put in, Stanley, I got my weekend's 1 win at Mall of America when I dominated the mini golf course. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I won the mini golf game. Yes.
Ron and Dom in the finals, but Ron reigns supreme.
Any other Mall? I want to hear some Mall of America highlights before we transition back into Magic and talk about looking ahead to Hartford. What else was cool at the Mall of America?
We got to go to, we went back on Monday and we got to go to the other mini golf course because the mall is so huge, they have two. And this one, the second one that we played in was very cool because it was on, I think, the third floor and it kind of overlooked the theme park and it was right near the Ferris wheel, so it had some cool views and the courses themselves
I'm
were...
sorry, did you say Ferris wheel? There's a Ferris wheel in this mall too?
Yes, there's a Ferris wheel, there's a whole theme park, I think...
3 roller coasters?
Yeah,
At least 3. Yeah.
At least 3. There's a water ride, like a
there's a
long
water flume ride.
So honestly, it was just really cool walking around, and we found a restaurant that we got to eat at for lunch. It was delicious. It kind of
Twin City Grill?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. They focused on like just classic Minneapolis, Minnesota food. Absolutely everything we got was delicious. Best meal of the weekend.
Whoa, better than Hell's Kitchen?
Better than Hell's Kitchen.
Oh
Yeah.
my. Shout out
it
to
was phenomenal.
Shout out to Hell's Kitchen, briefly.
Shout out to Hell's Kitchen.
Bacon
Not the Gordon
cheeseburger
Ramsay.
with homemade peanut butter. It was just like really delicious, like sweet and savory homemade peanut butter. I turned to Julianne like halfway through eating the burger and I was like, I'm putting peanut butter on all my hamburgers from now on. It was very good.
I'll just say about Mall of America, the thing that struck me as yes, I am that old, a child of the 80s who went to malls when going to malls was cool. I literally took pictures of some of the stores because I was like, what decade am I in? There was an Orange Julius. There was a Toys R Us. There was like, an American Eagle Outfitters. There was all these. I was expecting to come around the corner and see like a record store. I mean, it was like crazy, the kind of stores that were there. Definitely a highlight of the weekend, checking out Mall of America.
Nice. And in case anyone missed it, sorry, Julianne, what was the name of the best restaurant of the weekend?
Twin City Grill. I just looked it up to double check.
Twin City Grill. Perfect.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I know better than anyone, work doesn't always allow it, but if you have the option to spend an extra day or two at the venue you're going to play a Magic tournament at, I highly, highly recommend it, because even if you're showing up like, Friday morning and you're just going to the convention center, like it just feels like you cram your weekend so much with only the Magic side of it. I mean, I had 2 friends. Stanley actually was one of them who shows up Friday night for the tournament and is literally just there Saturday, Sunday for the event. And I'm just like, I just couldn't do that. Like we were there Friday through Monday night, just like chilling, having a good time doing Minneapolis things, and I couldn't have been happier. I don't think I've ever been happier going to Florida Magic tournament in my life. Like it was such a good time. So strongly recommend that. Yeah. DC was another huge highlight Magic tournament where me and Julianne, I think, we flew there Wednesday and then we left Tuesday, so we got like a couple extra days there. Obviously DC's a lot to do, so that makes sense you stay way longer there, but it was just so much fun just doing DC things, play a little Magic, then do some more DC things. So big highlight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that I really messed up. Real life is real life, so I got there last minute Friday, and that didn't help my tournament either. But also, from a weekend perspective, I think definitely the earlier you can get there, the better. Definitely going to make a better weekend in many ways. And, if the main event doesn't go the way you expect it to, don't be afraid to just, pivot. If you and your friends all scrub out, yeah, you can play the 10K if you want, or the 5K if you're, still feeling the vibe. But I really regret even going back to the convention center on Sunday, especially since I was leaving in Monday morning. going to the Mall of America on Sunday would have been a lot more fun than like I was just not in it, you know. I was tired. I was, defeated. The only deck I had was, the same deck that I, had just done badly on. So, if I could redo it, I would definitely have just been like, all right, see you guys at the mall. Let's go.
Yeah. Also, shout out Gabriel Nichols for losing round 1 to United Airlines and then proceeding to just tear through the tournament. Also, he back-to-backed top-aiding regional championships because he top-aided Portland with Boros Energy and then lost to Peter on Amulet Titan, who went on to go and win the tournament. Which
that's crazy.
Unfortunately, he can't humble brag
different.
that, I lost to the person twice who went on to win the tournament because his quarterfinals opponent was quickly dispatched. But still incredibly impressive. Yeah, I had a great experience in Dallas last year where I wasn't playing in the regional championship, but this is also the last regional championship at DreamHack. And this is like the first time I would like meet Stanley in real life. Hadn't seen Nick in a couple years. Hadn't seen Julianne in a couple years. Hadn't met Ron yet. And I was like, I'll fly in on like Wednesday. I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday. And I just like explored Dallas. Went and like ate a bunch of good food. And then when I wasn't playing Magic, I would like go watch StarCraft or Tekken or Overwatch or whatever. And it was just like such a cool experience. It's always a good time to like make a vacation out of these things if you can, because I mean, even if you do well, you can like have more highlights, and if you do poorly, you still have highlights.
Yeah, I love that. And Jacob, you're not too far from Hartford. Before we talk Magic in Hartford, any recommendations on if someone wants to do something that's not Magic? What's cool in Hartford?
Hartford, not quite sure, to be completely honest with you.
All right, we'll come back to that. Jacob, you can think about it for a bit. Let's talk about Magic, and at the end, if you have any ideas. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. So
I was really hoping for him to say not much, but instead he said not sure. So he saved himself with that one.
Yeah. All right, so Hartford is coming. One thing that I've been trying to do more and more for people that I'm going to briefly do now before we talk about kind of what we're going to be doing in Hartford. If you're going to play in an LCQ, I think the way you approach the day is really important. And while we're talking about how you approach your weekend, how you approach your day, I think it's a good transition into Hartford because plenty of people are going to try to LCQ in the main event. And I think what most people do is they say, okay, I'm going to show up as early as possible and I'm going to play as many LCQs as possible. And unless you win the first or second one, this is a horrible strategy. Because everyone I've talked to, everyone who's like gone in with this strategy, what happens is you get some horrible mix of tired and tilted, and those things are like self-sustaining mental states, because the more tired you are, the more bad you're going to play, the more tiring it's going to be, the more tilted you are, the more mistakes you're going to make, the more risks you're going to take, and the more you're going to lose. And once you kind of get caught in those loops and you just start rage queuing for more and more LCQs, you're just flushing your entries down the toilet, and you're spending time and money, and you're having a terrible time, and you have really bad EV. So my very, very strong recommendation for the day is you should show up early. You should get an early start on the day. But after your first couple of LCQs, take a break, get lunch, eat something nourishing, check beforehand, like what food places are close to the convention center. It's okay to take 60, 90 minutes and get a lunch that isn't convention food and take like a real mental break to then like bridge yourself into the afternoon with a like fresh mental state. And you're going to get more value out of those afternoon LCQs because you're actually there and present and not exhausted and pissed. And two, you're going to face a very different meta in the afternoon because in the morning, one, everybody has this idea of like, I'm going to get there first thing in the morning, I'm going to crush people, I'm going to win these LCQs. Everybody's like fresh and ready to roll. And what you also have is you have people like me and Nick or, that are queued, and we're here with friends, and maybe a few friends aren't queued, and we're going to join LCQs to try and help them get into the main event. And so, in Bologna, some of my friends over there were like, "Yeah, Mengu is in my LCQ." It's like, is he not qualified? Oh, he is. Like in the morning, you're going to face a lot more qualified players, a lot more fresh-minded players. It's a very, very competitive pool. Not that the pool isn't going to still be competitive in the afternoon, but by the afternoon, you have a bunch of people that are tired and tilted who didn't listen to my spiel and didn't get a nice lunch and didn't give themselves a mental break. You have the people who are already qualified who are trying to help their friends. At this point, they still want to help their friends, but they also want to do well in the main event themselves. And so they're probably not going to be LCQing all afternoon. They're going to take a break. They're going to, get to know the center. They're going to take a mental break, whatever. And so you ultimately end up with like a pretty noticeably, I don't want to say softer pool because all LCQs are difficult, but a lot of the sharks that you'll get gobbled up by in the first rounds or have a really difficult time getting past in the first rounds, there's just less in the afternoon. So don't go in, don't treat it like this combination sprint marathon where you're just gonna grind. Show up fresh, get a couple good reps in the morning. If they go great, awesome, enjoy the rest of your day. If they don't go the way you were planning, take a real break, get a real meal, and then come into the afternoon fresh, mentally ready to game, and you'll give yourself a much better chance to win an LCQ, even if you play one or two less. Just being a mentally present high-level gamer in the ones that you're actually playing in is going to give you a much better chance to walk away with an invite to the main event. End of speech.
Yeah, I agree, because I used to do the first LCQ in the morning, try to do the grind, and this was back when the LCQs fired on demand, which was not a very efficient system. The STG doing the every half hour is much better in my opinion, so shout out to them for that. But yeah, it always felt bad winning 3 rounds and then losing and then waiting to queue up the next one and then winning 2 rounds and then losing and then queuing up the next one, and then you're just tired and your brain isn't in the right spot and you're not making the right plays, and then you lose the first round, and then it's oh, okay, well, that was $25 down the drain. So now it's been a lot of fun. I've been doing Mystery Booster 2 sealed events on Friday, just something that you can only do at RCs or at big conventions, and that's really fun because you get to play cards that you're never going to play with again. You get to play against cards that you're never going to see again, and it's just playing Magic to have fun, because at the end of the day, that's what we're all there to do. So sometimes it's okay to not grind it out and just do something for yourself.
Completely agree. I can, as you're talking about the way you felt during those events, I can feel it too. Magic is a difficult game. It's a tiring game, and when you feel your grip slipping, the thing about LCQs is, people really feel like just grind. Take a beat. Take a lunch break. It's gonna help you so much more. Playing one less LCQ, but being there for the LCQs you play in, infinite EV. Definitely where you want to be. All right, with that, main event time. Jacob Knight about to jump into his first standard RC of the season. Not running it back after last weekend in Minneapolis. So, what's on your mind? What's in the game plan? What are we playing in Hartford?
99.9%. It's gonna be Is It Prowess. I played a little bit of Mono Red like over the weekend, but I was kind of like, sticks. Mediocre at best, and I will have to, for lack of a better wording, run hot, literally, for 15 rounds. And I think like one copy of Mono Red top 16. I think there was like 2 or 3 that made top 32. And the one that top 16 was playing Invasion of Tarkir, which I know who this person is. I mean, it's your card choice. I don't see how it's better than Lightning Strike, but like your words, but whatever. I have no accolades to my name, so in Magic the Gathering. So if you're better than me and you say it's good, then I guess I can trust you. That wasn't me being facetious. That was legit. I would have to test it before I can actually give an opinion on playing that card in Mono Red. But yeah, the version of Is It Prowess that I play is up in the air. There's really like Joko's build, who won Bologna. I think the main deck with the flex slots being 2 Flood Maws and a Spell Pierce is extremely strong. There's a part of me that if I'm going to play a stock build, I'm going to play some number of Torch of Towers in the main deck, just because in the aggro mirrors it's very good. It does kind of make me a little worse to Jeskai control, but I think I can finesse that matchup a little bit. At a certain point, that matchup, you're just losing the game anyways, so it doesn't really matter. At least against Jeskai Oculus, where Torch is a little bit better, but not as good. There's a little bit of finesse there, unless they like cheat an Oculus into play, manifest an Oculus, or what's it called? Manifest Dread an Oculus, flip it, get another Oculus. You're like, oh well, I'm in the hole, I'm dead. But I am leaning towards a build that Stanley came up with as a joke the other day, playing 0 copies of Slickshot or Draycatcher in the 75. Right. Playing
brief pause, Jacob. Please stop hitting your table. You're crushing our viewers.
Oh, my bad.
You're crushing these poor guys.
I'm super ADHD, but back on subject, back on topic. Yeah, it plays 4 stock up, 3 Hearth Elemental, 3 Eddie Merc Crab with 2 Into the Flood Maws in the main. And I don't know, the deck feels unbeatable. The only deck I've lost to has been I've lost 1 match to Mono Red. That's just poor draws. I think I have maybe 30 games of testing so far, so not like a super large sample size. But by Wednesday, I'm making my decision. I'm not gonna submit on Wednesday, but I'm not putting any more testing in after a Wednesday for any deck, just for mental health reasons. That's where I'm at.
Lot to unpack.
I'm going to interject.
All right.
Well, it's on my mind.
All right, excellent.
No, this isn't. No, this is another tip I have is you should know what you're playing the Wednesday before a tournament, because let's be honest, you're not going to play an LCQ on Friday and have some revelation about what cards you want to register in your deck. So just for peace of mind and just to get it out of the way, register your deck before you hop on the plane on Thursday. Just do it. You're not changing it unless you're some grinder in a testing house. You're not changing your deck before the tournament. So just lock your deck in the Wednesday before, or I guess if you're flying up Friday, lock it in the Thursday before, right? And then just submit it. Get out of the way.
Strong agree with that. Now, doubling back to unpack a lot of what Jacob talked about. So I'm going to talk about Mono Red first, and then we'll talk about Is It and the feelings in the room on how to build a deck. But just
one thing, Stanley.
Yeah.
Something I also play tested because shout out my boy Troubleshot, aka Caleb Noon, who top forward the standard 10K in Minneapolis playing Mono Black Demons. I tested it. I liked the deck, not my playstyle. If you like playing mid range decks, highly recommend either play. I'm not gonna say play his list because my buddy is very high on rip every card out of your hand and then stick a threat, which he played a lot of hand disruption, which I don't know if that's the correct answer. That's kind of his mindset, but that or Demir, very, very solid choices, especially based off of the statistics of the two decks. They're statistically very, very well positioned.
For sure. With that, doubling back to Mono Red, one, I think Mono Red is still fine. I think that, like, I am not a Magic historian. So when I see all these numbers on a page, there's like Magic historians who are like 53% win rate. Oh my, it's broken. And then they look at like Mono Red and it's like 48.5. Yeah, that deck sucks now. And I'm just like, there's 4.5% difference between those two. And I get that. So like that seems to be a big deal, and there's a lot of people who like put a lot of weight into these, like what to me is just someone who has done a lot of math in their life. I'm just looking at that 4.5% delta going like, really? Is it that big of a deal? So like, just again being completely practical, looking at mono red aggro, 48.4%. Multiply that by 9. There's 9 rounds day 1. You get 4 point something. Go look at Is It Prowess, 52.4%. Multiply that by 9. Again, you get 4 point something. Like either of these win rates, if you like say, oh well, the average person's gonna go 52.4% on Is It Prowess. Oh, okay. We're talking about like, if you round one up and the other down, we're talking about one win's different, and neither one is like taking you to day 2. Like, players' skill and knowing your deck and hitting the matchup lottery, and there's all these things. As we always say, you got to be lucky and good. I can't fathom looking at, oh, Mono Red's 48.8. Well, deck's washed. Deck's bad now. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe people will tell me why I'm wrong, but as just like a guy who looks at numbers and sees them as numbers, I don't get it. I mean, I do think Is It Prowess is a lot better than Mono Red, but I also think it's a lot harder to play than Mono Red. And there's like a lot more skill expression that's either going to make or break you in Is It Prowess. But I don't think Mono Red is at all a bad choice. And I don't think I would look at any deck within, 2-3 percentage points of 50% and say, oh, bad deck. Like, if that's your deck, if that's what you feel good on, like, rock it, play it. The meta has continued to change a lot since Bologna. People are packing hate, but there were 2 mono reds in top 8 at Bologna. Like, I don't kind of get the mono red alarmism. It's the mouse package is strong, Monstrous Rage is strong. It's got plenty of good removal spells. It's not without weaknesses, but no deck is. And speaking to Invasion of Tarkir, Jacob, same page. Quinn said on Twitter it's his pet card, and as a guy with pet cards, I totally get it. I can see the applications. I think one thing that I would say about Invasion of Tarkir, which I, said to Michael when he was thinking about maybe playing it, is that, or maybe I even said it to Ron, maybe I said it to both of them, but it's a really, really difficult card to play with. Quinn, he could play whatever he wants and do well. He could play put a couple ham sandwiches in that slot and he'd be just as well, right? But like, for even a player like me, player like Ron, you look at Invasion and you're like, okay, I deal 2 damage. And that's a really nice dragon on the backside. But you have to let your opponent gain 5 life to get the dragon. And understanding when it's appropriate to give your opponent 5 life in exchange for a powerful threat is really, really, really difficult. So whether or not Invasion is like actually the nuts, Quinn and maybe a few people that he plays with, or a few people that are absolute mono red experts and have played with the card, they all know exactly how good it is. The rest of us are just kind of guessing. I wouldn't play it. I wouldn't suggest anyone who asks my advice play it, because I think it's incredibly difficult to understand when, as a mono red player, I want to say, sure, you gain 5 life and I get this dragon. And that's assuming I can deal exactly 5 damage to it. Because sometimes you're going to deal 6 damage to it, or 7 damage to it, to get it to flip over. And sometimes your opponent's going to have removal, and you go to like attack it for 5, and then they have removal and you deal 3 damage to it, and you're like, shit, now I'm committed, but I don't have my dragon yet. I have to like try and flip it next turn. There's so much depth and complexity to that card. I wouldn't suggest anyone even mess with it unless you're just a certified expert. I certainly wouldn't. And I'm not saying I wouldn't because it's bad. I'm saying I wouldn't because maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but I think it's really, really, really hard to play with. And then I'm going to pass the mic to Nick to talk about prowess next. But what I will say is we definitely have some like disagreements in the room. Is it prowess is really cool. There's a lot of ways to build it. And some of us think some cards are broken. Some of us think other cards are broken. Eddie Merc Crab is holding the whole room together. But otherwise, there's definitely a lot of opinions in the room on how to build it, how to win against a field of mirrors and decks that are designed to beat you. As Jacob mentioned, he's been really enjoying my crab and hearth heavy build, but we're gonna talk to Nick next, who is on a much more stock flavor at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, my mother once told me, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I'm not going to talk very much about Stanley's list, but I will talk about stock Is It Prowess. Shout out to Jacob Milchman, who I know I've seen his name on Twitter before, which is the only reason I knew this deck list existed. But he was playing a one of Eddie Merc Crab in his sideboard. And I was kind of looking at this card, and I was like, holy shit, this card is actually really smart. Because in post-board games, when your opponent is bringing in High Noons, Temporary Lockdowns, and all these cards that are really good against the Is It Prowess plan, how do you beat that? You turn into a good mid-range deck. And while Eddie Merc Crab does an incredibly good job of beating both of those cards, which are going to be the two most problematic cards, because obviously it doesn't get hit by Temporary Lockdown, and because it does Flash, it means you get to play a threat on your opponent's turn. So, yeah, I kind of adapted that and decided to start playing 2 in my sideboard, and I thought it was great. And I remember Stanley telling me it sucked. So yeah.
That is literally not true at all.
I'll pull up the Discord message. I'll pull it up on the webcam because it did happen. You said Eddie Merc is just not doing it for me.
Okay, that's way different than it sucks. That's not even remotely close. What I'm certain that I said is that sometimes it was really good, but sometimes it was uncastable. When I was playing it in the sideboard, I was having a very medium time. But then Nick just like wouldn't stop. And yeah, big shout out Jacob. And Nick said, hey, it's basically a main deck card. I just board it every time. It's just always good. And that was honestly one of the things that I was like, screw it. I'm just going to put four Eddie Merc main deck. Like being rewarded for casting my spells seems really good. And I think to Nick's point about beating the hate, we're just seeing so much main deck hate right now that I'm like, we have to main deck anti hate in response. The meta is just so deeply warped, and it already was. Two of my losses, like, I lost to Boros Monument with main deck Sheltered by Ghosts, 3 copies of main deck Sheltered by Ghosts, and 4 copies of an indestructible creature to shelter. So I got sheltered into Oblivion round 1, and then round 4 or 5 I was playing against main deck High Noon. And so, like, decks are targeting and hating us right from game 1. And I mean, I didn't think it was good, but I've been playing it. Jacob's been playing it. A fair number of people online have been playing, like, oh, what if a lot of people are replacing the slick shot plan with other more resilient threats. We'll let Nick talk more about Draycatcher here in a minute, but I'm just like, yeah, what if I just really focus on these big fat fatties? It's been pretty good for some of us. But I agree with everything you said about Eddie Merc. I was having a mixed experience with it when it was in the sideboard. Definitely didn't say it sucked, but I was leaning towards not playing it because coming out of the side, I wasn't able to make it work as well. But just kind of going all in on that plan has definitely felt really good for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I went on a rant yesterday about it, and I still feel pretty strongly about what I said. But again, I think it just was pretty negative. So I'm not gonna. I don't really want to speak to it very much. But I have been enjoying the just stock prowess that plays to Eddie Merckx in the sideboard. I mean, I think Draycatcher's a fine choice main deck over a couple slick shots when you expect 50% of your matches to be against aggro. I mean, slick shot's bad against aggro, Draycatcher's great against aggro. So while like people say Draycatcher's bad because it's only good against aggro, well, when 37% of the meta is a prowess and 10% is mono red, then literally half your matchups are aggro, right? So it just kind of makes sense to commit some slots. I even see some people playing Hatcher's main and Slickshot side, which I find interesting, because you just do a clean swap for them if you're in one of those matchups where Draycatcher is worse than Slickshot. I'm not a huge fan of it because Slickshot's really bad against High Noon still, so it doesn't really make too much sense to me, but I understand the logic behind it. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it, from going from Minneapolis playing probably the worst deck in the room to going to Hartford and playing the undoubtedly best deck in the room with some cool changes. Definitely something I'm looking forward to. So, yeah.
Prowess, best deck in the room. You heard it here, 137th. Like, Minnie. Okay. I'm not funny. It's fine. Oh, all right. Julianne's also going to play Eddie Merc Crab. Julianne played Eddie Merc Crab last weekend. What are you thinking about for your deck? Big changes, small changes, medium changes?
So in Minneapolis I played Simic Terror, just because a couple weeks before playtesting I was having mana issues on Sultai, and that was pretty concerning. So I cut black, and then a Sultai Terror list got 100th place in Minneapolis. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I started giving that list some testing. There's, a lot of things I like. Some things I'm changing, just as like medicals and stuff. But I think I will be playing Sultai Terror in Hartford. So that's exciting because that's what I qualified with. I qualified with like Sultai lists, and I like what Sultai, like what options we have in those colors. So I'm looking forward to it. I feel like I've stated before that if I could play 8 Eddie Merc crabs in my deck, I would. So now that we're all team crabs, makes me happy because, yeah, I've been on team crabs for many months now. So,
Sully.
Special guest appearance. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, and we got to talk about Hearth Elemental a little. Nick, you can just like mute your audio or whatever. You can take a walk, whatever you need to do. But like the deck that Jacob and I are playing with Hearth Elemental and Eddie Merc Crab, it actually ends up, of course the play patterns are very different, but that core of like I have 8 big dudes is like very similar. Obviously we're both playing Eddie Merc Crab, and someone asked me like, what if we played Terror too? But I think you can pretty quickly put Terror and Hearth Elemental side by side. And obviously in your builds, you're like, I'm not playing Hearth Elemental, I'm playing Terror. He's great. But I think if you put the 2 cards side by side, certainly in the Izzet build, it's very easy to see that like, oh, Hearth Elemental is 1 mana cheaper. I'm only giving up 1 power. I'm giving up Ward 2, but like, meh. And I'm getting this awesome adventure. And so at 1 mana cheaper, that can oftentimes mean just putting my 4/5 into play a turn sooner. It's, still a fatty that at 1 per turn, I'm happy on that raid against High Noon. And then if I happen to be low or out of cards and Hearth Elemental is chilling, I'm just like, oh, sweet, draw 2. Like having the adventure mode as some icing on my Tolarian Terror that's cheaper and just gives up the ward and 1 power, that feels like a very like equitable, if not profitable trade. There's a lot of like similarity between the 2 decks, and obviously, we're still tinkering with the numbers on like how many crabs, how many elementals, all that stuff. But the game plan of like I'm gonna cast a bunch of spells and then cast cheap fatties is very much there. And Terror and Hearth Elemental have more similarities than differences. I think if you look at Hearth Elemental and see the adventure as the primary card, it's really easy to be like, card's probably not very good. Probably actively bad in multiples. But if you look at it as a Tolarian Terror with an adventure, it's like...
That's kind of where I want to hop in, is in my playtesting. So I played a lot of Stanley's version that he played in Minneapolis. And it always felt like the plan there was you had to cast the adventure side of Hearth Elemental before you could actually cast your 1 mana 4/5 or your 2 mana 4/5. But this list that Stanley has made is essentially like we're playing 4 stock up. We might settle on 3, but by extension, it feels like every card in the deck now has a higher power level, because if I play an Artist Talent, or I keep saying that, if I play a Storm Chaser's Talent late in the game, and I have, in the fun moment, I have a Monstrous Rage, I have a stock up in the yard, you have to get rid of my Talon, or you're going to lose the game. And then I just get to sit here and make land drops, cast my stock ups, and if you counter them, I don't really care, and I get these big fatties, where I just get to play on your turn. And most of the time, when I've been playing the deck, I just play Hearth Elemental as a 1 mana 4/5, and then sometimes I just equip a Quarry Steelcutter to it, and I kill you with it. And then I'll play my crabs on your turn, even if I have no targets, and then I'll equip a Steelcutter to it, and I'll kill you with it. You play a Beza, where I have more creatures than you, and you get 2 fish. I tap your Beza and your fish, and I kill you. Like, the sequences have just been kind of... You have to play the deck a little bit differently, but it just felt like, like you're watching Avengers Endgame, and, Thanos goes, I am inevitable, right? That's literally how it feels to play the deck. I'm not joking here. There has not been a match where
Nick,
I've been
take
like...
a walk, bud.
Well... maybe I'm glazing here. I don't know, but no. it just feels insane.
I'm really enjoying the deck, and I want to like pivot back to talk more about Julianne's deck. But it really like playtesting against Julianne, when she did the thing, like once she was online, I was like, I can't win this. Oh, sorry. Oh, man. Just like when Julianne had those fast starts where she did the thing and could, like, all her sea creatures were online. Oh man, it's so hard to win. And this deck has that same feeling where, like, if you get yourself into the middle or end game, and now you have this density of just like big walls and that have like good abilities, good stats, it's very, very hard for your opponent to overcome. And like the 4 stock ups is, or 3 if we play 3, it's just like it all comes together really nicely, and you have so much gas. And it's not like um my last build was definitely pretty left field. That was the Stanley special, but there was a lot of reasons for that. There's also the issue with, like, I was doing prowess before everybody else, so it's hard for me to start with like the stock build and work backwards when, like, I started working on prowess 4 months ago or whatever. But there was a challenge winning list that played 2 stock ups and 2 hearth elementals. They like treated hearth elemental as like their stock up replacement, playing the 2-2 split, which is kind of what I was doing in the previous deck. But it turns out they can actually just like live together. Like, comparing side by side, 3 stock ups, 3 hearth elementals is way more value than 2 stock ups, 2 hearth elementals. So it really is cool, and it's taking inspiration from, as much as Nick hates it, it's taking inspiration from what Nick said, and it's taking inspiration from what Julien's deck is doing. And I think, just like you said, Jacob, it comes together and does a really cool thing. But we pivoted away from Julienne's deck before I could ask her, what's the black cards? What's bringing us back to Sultai? Are you playing Rakshasa's Bargain? Are you playing Nowhere to Run again? What's going on in Sea Creature Town?
So it's basically the 60th Simic, but there is 2, right now there's 2 Nowhere to Runs in the main, just because aggro is so dominant. But then you have black sideboard cards like Go for the Throat, more Nowhere to Runs. You also have Swarm Weaver, and then
What is Swarm Weaver?
Swarm Weaver is 2 black-green enchantment creature. Wait, it's either an enchantment creature or an artifact creature, but it's a 2/3, and when it enters, it makes 2 1/1 flying insects, and then if you have Delirium, insects you control get +1/+1 and Death Touch.
Nice. Okay.
And then you also get to open yourself up to spells like Terra Sunder and Rona's Vortex, which both have black in the kicker cost, which can sometimes come up and be very beneficial. So
what about? I'm very curious because Rakshasa's Bargain was like your number 1 Dragonstorm card, and I just grabbed my phone to double check. Bargain puts cards in the graveyard. I mean,
yeah,
it's got to at least be on your radar. Are you?
So I have tried. I mean, I think on Arena I have like 20 different decks that are titled like X Terror or X Sea Creatures or something, because I mean I've been playing this deck for like this deck style for so long. So I've tried Rakshasa's Bargain, but it always just felt a little like stumbly. Like, you already have Seed of Hope, which mills you, Cash Grab, which mills you, and those are both like 1 mana, 2 mana respectively. And the games where I feel invincible are when I can like turn 3 slam down a terror, follow it up with a crab. So on turn 3, like, I don't want to be fueling my yard. I want my yard to have already been fueled to then start to play some of my threats.
Sully. That makes sense. It's just slower than the cards that are already doing a good job in your deck.
Yeah, it would just be adding to... I think you would be adding to cards that already do what Rakshas's Bargain already does, but in a cheaper way.
Yeah. Makes sense. Ron, within hours of the end of your RC, what did you say to me? I should have just played mono red.
Oh yeah,
Ron, finishes
Yeah.
his ley line run, and then he goes and he builds mono red, and he's chilling playing it while and then he says, "This deck is great. Why didn't I just play this?" One of my few regrets from Minneapolis, despite Minneapolis not going great. I don't regret a lot. We all did what we thought was right, but I wish I had spent more time trying to convince you to play mono red. We were all on the play what got you there train. So, I got there with bolt waves. You guys got there with ley lines. Julianne got there with sea creatures. We all just did our thing. But I really regret not forcing you to play my mono red list a little bit more. So I assume on that front, if you were going to Hartford, you'd be playing mono red.
Oh yeah. I've been playing around with it. When I have a moment, lunch breaks at work, and after work in the evenings and stuff. And it's just oh, this is what it feels like to have a chance and play a deck that can win at a relative win rate. Yeah, it's no, Nick's but I love Leyline. That deck is so it's I think it's an amazing deck. I just think it was not the place for it. And believe me, if the opportunity comes where it slots in again, I'll be right there, loving every minute of it. But if I was going to Hartford, 100%, my list would probably already be submitted. So yeah, I'd be on mono red, and I would not be playing Tarkir.
Invasion of Tarkir, yeah. I know for sure what Ron's favorite card in that deck is right now. He gets a lot of pleasure out of what card, Ron?
Which one do you think it is?
You're gonna say it.
Am I?
I have faith.
Let's see. Which is my favorite card right now?
Don't think about it. Just what card do you really enjoy?
Well, I love Monstrous Rage. I've always loved Monstrous Rage.
Gosh, you can walk a goat to water, but you can't make him drink.
What?
The lizard, the big lizard. Now I forget the name. I'm so flustered.
I only like that card against you.
What's the name of it?
Magebane Lizard.
Magebane Lizard. Jeez.
Yeah.
I've never seen a bigger smile on Ron's face than when he's telling me about this arena stories of I play Magebane Lizard and then the lizard lights up white like they're reading the card. And
oh yeah. That card's a blast. You put 2 or 3 of those down game 2 and your opponent on arena's going, And like I said, yeah, it lights up white. Then you see them think for a little bit. You see their deck lights up because they're looking at cards in their deck. And then Magebane lights up again, and then they're looking at cards in their deck. And then they're like, sometimes they're just like, pass.
Oh boy.
Shout out Magebane
I know you liked
Lizard.
it when I had a couple down against you.
Unfortunately, I can never go back to the Magebane Lizard train because when I was testing for DC, I was like, oh, this card's great against Phoenix. And then every time I put it in play, they just lightning axed it. I was like, oh my god, this card is so bad. And now it's like every time I've played it in Standard, it's like, this card's great. And then it's like, bolt it. I was like, why are you playing Oboe in the 75 of your Is It Browse deck? Why does this keep happening to me?
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I have not seen an Oboe in, forever.
Well, welcome to my games.
Yeah. Hey, Lizard's a good card. If your opponent plays it, you kind of really just have 2 options. Have one of your removal spells for it, or if you don't, drop your inhibitions and try to kill them anyway. Obviously, the red deck is going to find other ways to pressure your life total, so you got to either kill the lizard or kill them. Taking damage is fine as long as they take more than you. You double lizarded me once, and I think again with that mediocre build of mine, I was like, if I can only cast one more spell. It's like, if I didn't need to, yeah. Anyway.
I have something to say.
I would love to hear it.
I feel like my new thing is playing a massive arena during the podcast, because I find an opportunity where Stanley tells me to shut up, and then I decide to play arena. And so I just beat mono white control thing with main deck High Noon, Voice of Victory, and Lauren on my Corey Steelcutter on turn 3. And Authority of the Consuls, but that's probably a post-book card. But anyway, I just wanted to say all this because I didn't cast a single Hearth Elemental or Eddie Murkrab in this match. I just cast Stock Up multiple times, and my opponent died.
Good job. Fantastic. Again, I don't know if I speak English or not. I don't remember telling Nick to shut up. I certainly didn't say Eddie Murkrab sucks. But here we are. I think what Nick forgets, and I try to remind him, and it makes him roll his eyes, he's better than all of us, and it's not particularly close. I think Nick should play the stock build. I said, hey, Nick, you love Eddie Murkrab. Check out this deck. And he was like, it's worse than stock. All right, dude, that's fine. Play stock. You are... if you're one of the best players in any given room you walk into, you don't have to do anything cute or special. You just, play Magic and beat people. It's the rest of us who need to, find edges in other places. And one thing I thought you said that I thought was really interesting, that I wish you had said to me when I told you I was struggling with the stock build. Instead, you just said, ugh.
That sounds familiar. Actually.
Yeah. I was like, I can't win with the stock build, and your whole response was ugh. But what I wish you had said was the thing. I think you said it earlier on the podcast, but I want to highlight it, where you treated prowess kind of like Phoenix, where Plan A is so good, you just do Plan A and kill your opponent, and then you accept that everyone is prepared to beat your Plan A, and so you almost have a pivot plan that you do every matchup. And so you're purposefully pivoting into Eddie Murkrab pretty much every matchup, even though you feel like you don't need him in game 1. Game 1, I'm just going to do the thing. Game 2, I'm going to accept that I need to do a slightly different thing to win the game. And I think this is a really smart way to think about it. And maybe that would have been helpful advice at the time. UGG was pretty good advice too.
Was I working? 5/7, 12:35 p.m. What was May 7th? I think I was working. Hold on. I want to figure this out. Yeah, I was. Yep, I was working. That's why.
Yeah.
I didn't respond until 3 hours later, and all I could muster was done.
So I think that's good advice if you're still on the stock build and you're struggling a little bit, accepting that okay, game 1 I'm gonna do the thing, and sometimes my opponent will have main deck help hate, but there's still enough gas in the deck to just do the thing. But post board you accept that you need to win on an alternate axis, and that's fine. I thought that was very insightful, and I want to highlight that as we talk about we talked earlier. Quinn could play ham sandwiches. Nick's in the same ham sandwich conversation. So I would never try to, besides for Spotlight, convince Nick to play specific cards. I would have died on the Snakeskin is better than Might of the Meek Hill, but luckily. I think the seminal moment, still one of my favorite stories to tell, was when I Exactseed someone with a copied Snakeskin, but I had mana left over, and it was right as you were walking over at the RC queue. You're like, see, Might of the Meek would have been so good there. Flips over 2 lands. Never mind. Opponent wouldn't have died. It would not have been good there. That felt like a pretty seminal moment. But getting back on topic, if you're playing the stock build, Nick said that earlier. I just want to highlight it because I think it's really good advice for how you approach building and playing the deck. And I think that's probably what the high level players are doing. And I think, me being, aggro guy, I was very locked in on just like trying to win as an aggro deck. And part of my struggle was that, especially post board, that's really, really hard. And now with all the main deck hate, it's harder than average in game 1 as well, but you can still do it. It's just hard. It takes a lot of skill. It takes good hands, good play, good everything.
And I think someone said something to me. I think it was Evan actually, because when we were prepping for DC, shout out Coleman, because I copied almost his exact list for DC, and then I ended up doing really well in that tournament as well. And something he told me to do was board in Fable for literally every matchup. And I was like, there's no way it's correct to board in Fable against the Rakdos Prowess that kills you on turn 3, right? There's no way. I think I ended up playing like a couple practice games with you the weekend before.
We played a lot of practice games.
Yeah. I was getting destroyed by the Prowess deck, and it's like, all right, Coleman, like, let me just try what you said. Started boarding in Fable, and then I started winning more than 50% of our games, and it was just because like the way you alter your deck post board is just really it favors the Fable plan a lot better, where you're just playing a way more fair deck trying to beat what they're trying to do, so you just want your individually powerful cards to be better. And I think that's a reason I think I like Eddie Mercrab so much, because Eddie Mercrab does that, where someone asked me, like, when do you board an Eddie Mercrab? And I'm like, I don't know, pretty much every matchup, right? And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, because if people boarding in hate for you, then you just want to play individually good cards. And shit, I've cast a card for 5 mana, it still feels really good, like, it's just the most individually powerful thing to be doing. And so I just thought I'd point that out, because when you change your deck's game plan so much post-board, it makes unorthodox strategies like board in Fable against aggro a lot better, because it's just the way your deck plays post-board is way different than how it plays pre-board.
And the way your opponent's deck plays post-board.
Mm-hmm. That as well. The
Prowess
deck.
That's what people forget.
And in the Prowess versus Phoenix matchup specifically, I think if Rakdos Prowess just like resubmitted, the match would be a lot harder. But I think when people are bringing in those Hazarets and Fatal Pushes, Thoughtseize, and things like that, like that plan is probably better against like the game 1 Phoenix deck. But like when you accept the fact that that's how they're going to board, you have to adapt to that and bring in cards like Fable, because they're more well equipped to beat cards like Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, and Hazaret. And so I think it's a very similar thing here. What's the common strategy people are doing with Prowess is they're cutting their slick shots, they're cutting some amount of their like cantrips, so it lowers their speed. So you can adapt to that and play a card like Eddie Mercrab that punishes them for slowing down, because then you just randomly like tap down their attackers and kill them.
I think it kind of also goes back to I think Jerry Thompson said it like pre-ban last season, where like there's no reason to not be playing Underworld Breach in Modern. It's the best deck by a long shot, right? And like the best players are going to play it, and the fact of the matter is like the deck like just transitions into a deck that happens to have a combo but also has this like inevitability, like with like Renin 6 and Urza. So this Prowess deck it's always going to be who wins. Like if you play the Prowess mirror and you're playing stock, it's whoever wins the die roll and draws better game 1. But games 2 and 3, like it's really going to be about who plays better, and then also what is your plan, because everyone's going to slow down their decks, right? Like Drake Hatcher, good card in the mirror, it's a 1/3. Like it's not like it's attacking when it enters play. Like so if they play a Drake Hatcher and you abrade it, or like you're already ahead and you torch the tower at bargained, like they're behind and you're ahead, and then they have to respond to what you're doing. So and like in a room full of hate, Nick built a deck. He built a Phoenix list, which I didn't know he copied from Coleman. Shout out Coleman. But I guess Coleman created a list where it's like, I pivot into a game plan that's inevitable, where no matter what you do, like, because I think in DC it was like 30% of the metagame was blue-white control, and people were main decking High Noons, and like most of the Phoenix players that had good plans post-board and pivoted to like kind of a mid-rangey tempo strategy, they just sauced them. Like, it didn't matter. It's like a hard cast Mara like Phoenix's force you to respond to, and eventually you're just gonna die, and like you're not gonna have any threats. And I'm all brakes, or all gas, no brakes.
All brakes, no gas.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're getting a little off topic with that, but I mean, I think one of my favorite parts about playing that tournament was going into it looking at blue-white control as such a bad matchup, because they were playing like multiple High Noons main deck, and they were playing Subtle Wreckages in their main deck, and then I even played some games against Stanley, who's never touched a control deck before, and then he like 4-0s me in testing. I'm like, shit, like I'm not gonna be able to use blue control at all. I know, I'm being facetious, but he just destroys me on blue control. I'm like, man, like how am I gonna do with this tournament if I can't do blue control? And then I go to the tournament, I end up 6-0ing it.
Apparently, I should have played blue-white control at that tournament. Actually,
apparently so. But yeah, like so much of Magic, and I feel like this is especially true for Izzet decks. I mean, maybe that's just my experience playing Izzet decks, but so much of Magic is having a good sideboard plan for every matchup and knowing what your plan is in those post-board games. And so, whether it's Izzet Phoenix and Pioneer, or Izzet Prowess and Standard, or even Izzet Prowess or Izzet Murktide in Modern, like you just have to have a game plan that adapts to what your opponent's doing, and you want to have a sideboard plan that is good for it, because you can do some unorthodox things as long as it makes sense. It's going to work out for you.
Yeah, and as we start to try and wrap up, I want to highlight one thing that you said that I think touches on a lot of important topics. You said the Rakdos Prowess deck would have probably had a better win rate against Phoenix if it just resubmitted instead of trying to like do this sideboard pivot that then Phoenix has a pivot in response to the pivot, and you just stay ahead of them. You're 3 steps ahead of them almost. But and what I want to encourage you to do, because there's a lot of chess happening here, and so if I were playing the Prowess deck, and I don't think I said this idea out loud at the time, but definitely as we talk about it, I think of like, if I was playing that Prowess deck and in game 2 you fabled me, worse yet, you cast 2 fables, I'm taking right back into my sideboard. I'm like, all right, forget it, screw it. Like, re-sideboarding to like, okay, if you're going to disrespect me like this and play Fable of the Mirror Breaker against me, I'm going back to that ultra fast plan. And like that's plenty applicable right now in this like wide open crazy standard where people are doing all kinds of chaotic things. Like if you have, as a guy who makes sideboard guides, this part becomes almost impossible for me, and that's why I write full deck guides and do streams and coaching and videos and all this other stuff, because some sheet of paper that says take these cards out and put these cards in can only get you so far. And if your opponent does something very interesting in game 2, it's important for you to, after game 2, assuming there's going to be a game 3, take a moment and reflect on what the heck just happened and try to think, okay, my opponent has changed their game plan in this way. Now, how do I want to respond to that? Do I want to reboard in game 3 and do something a little bit different to counter their counter? Because it looks like they saw my original counter coming, and so now I need to counter their counter for my counter. And you get locked in these things, but it's worth it to try. I say this all the time. The sideboard guide is a guide. It's not law. So no matter whose sideboard guide you walk into the event with, mine, yours, some other creators, stay spry, stay vigilant, check your opponent's deck list, and take note of the cards they actually cast against you, because your game plan in game 1 is going to be different than your game plan in game 2, and you may need to change your game plan again in game 3, based on what your opponent's doing, based on play draw, based on all kinds of things. But don't get too attached. Be fluid. Be ready for whatever your opponent throws at you, and make sure you're playing chess for all 3 games. I don't know. I'm excited for Hartford. Are you guys excited?
I'm excited. I've heard Providence is a nice airport, and I like airports, so.
I learned something new about Nick today.
Yeah, so you're going to be my cuddle buddy on the plane in a couple days, so.
Can't wait. Do we have... Is Southwest open seating?
It is, so you just have to make sure to check in.
I thought they were
with us,
changing it.
They
but
are
they're not?
changing it,
Oh.
but it hasn't happened yet.
Yes! That's
So-
awesome. I
so
didn't
yeah,
know
just
that.
submit at 7 p.m. and we'll all be sitting together.
Excellent. Well, can't wait. It's going to be fun. I will once again be giving away a ton of monk tokens. So find me, say hi, get some free tokens. Also shout out Heavy Play. Sponsored Nick and I. We love Heavy Play. Thanks, you guys. Nick's wearing the hat too in his heart. Oh, Jacob's got.
Well,
something.
you asked me for things to do in Hartford.
Oh, yeah.
There's not much that we can play, honest with you. But keep in mind, you're in the Northeast, right? So, like, if you scrub out day one and you, like, have a couple days, like, you can rent a car. You can go to New York. You can go to Massachusetts. You can go to Boston, right? Like New York's only 2 hours
Sounds
away. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's, the most financially sound thing to do, but I mean,
Is there like a train or a metro? Or something?
So if you go to New Haven, you can take, which is not close to Hartford, you can take the Amtrak there. There actually might be an Amtrak in Hartford. I'm not 100% sure, but there is an Amtrak that will take you to the New Haven line, and then New Haven will take you to Grand Central in New York.
Alright.
You could also take a train all the way down to D.C. if you wanted to. I mean, it's like 10 hours, but I mean...
Okay, just a short...
Yeah.
All right, so what I'm hearing from Jacob is don't scrub out, because there's no... If
you guys need to play really tight and not scrub out.
If you know some cool places in the Hartford area or cool things to do, put those in the comments. I feel like that's a thing people do on social media. They like tell people to comment. So let's do that. And we're excited. I don't think maybe I said the word Patreon yet. I'm supposed to say Patreon. I have one of those. It's cool.
Subtle
I say
brag.
smart stuff sometimes. The Discord community is really nice. In any case, this has been fun. We're excited about Hartford. Hope you guys are excited about Hartford. And Eddie Mert Crab? How many copies of Eddie Mert Crab in the top 8 at Hartford? 3, 6, 10, 12? Sound good?
4 plus 3 is... Okay.
12 copies of Eddie Mert Crab in the top 8 at
13.
Hartford?
Jacob Milchman is going to top it with his one of.
Ooh, that's right. Big shout out, Jacob, honestly. Jacob, we are officially Is It Prowess Crab Believers. Thanks a lot for that, Tech. Alright, I gotta figure out how to end this thing. I don't know if people love or hate the cue the outro music thing, but that's really all I got. So, cue the outro music, kids.
We could just wave.
We just wait. Ron's got it. Alright, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time. Oh no, I didn't click stop.